My name's Dr. James Bulgin. I'm Head of Public History at Imperial War Museums in Britain, but I was Head of Content for the new Holocaust Galleries at Imperial War Museums. And today, I'm at the German Historical Museum at this new exhibition on displaying violence. So the Horror Camps is an exhibition that opened in London very shortly after the end of the war, and it uses large images of liberation, predominantly of Belsen, as its core mode of display. And of course, the idea behind doing that is to somehow bring you into the same world. So contemporarily, there's a range of perspectives about how imagery of this nature should be used, or in fact, whether it should be used at all. There's some people who would say you should use the imagery unconditionally, without filter, because it exists, it's an established part of the historical record, and to suppress it is a meaningless gesture. There's some people who would say you should never use the imagery under any circumstances. It can never be used. It's such a kind of dereliction of responsibility to our kind of ethical obligation to the people in the imagery, and it should be perpetually unused by the museums. And then there's a whole range of positions in between those two things. So this opening space of the exhibition is called the Horror Camps, and that title is derived from the history itself. That was the expression that was used in British media at the time to describe Belsen. But what's really interesting is here, and as was the case at the time, it's not just the horror camp, which is how Belsen was described, but the horror camps. And what that suggests is this universalization of the camp environment. So the specificity of place is lost almost immediately. What we also see is the process by which the identity of those who are liberated is defined really early on, or in fact undefined, as it's described here. An invisibility occurs because, of course, a really large number of the people who were liberated at Belsen were Jewish. It's gratifying to see here these people reintroduced into the frame, a kind of a correction in that act of elision. And you know, interpretively, it's interesting to me that they're positioned at this height, so we affectively meet them at eye level, and some of their humanity, or some of our responses to their humanity, are derived from the fact that we encounter them in an almost unexpected way, directly by looking them in the eyes. So a lot of people, when they think about the history of the Second World War and the history of the Holocaust, their memory takes them to the end of the war, and then it sort of stops. Whereas the reality is, of course, that after the war, there were tens of thousands of survivors with nowhere to go. And so they ended up living in these places, and these places became really important sites of self-assertion, self-identity, trying to define and carve out different anticipations of the future, etc. The exhibition at the Belsen DP camp is really kind of distinct, because it's something which doesn't just exemplify the experiences of the people that it deals with, but is a product of their own effort. So they fabricated it themselves. They're not speaking objectively about something at arm's length. They're talking about themselves, what they've experienced, what they are experiencing in the immediate contemporaneous present. And it's interesting as well to be in an exhibition, seeing how an exhibition in the post-war period became a means of defining this community, not just what happened to them or where they were, but how they look towards the future as well.